9:05. Okay, good morning, everybody. Month of Tishrei, we continue to learn. Leilu Nishmat Bat Yafega Bas Yisrael, Frida Sima Bas Yitzchak, for the Refuah Shlema Moshe Asher Ben Malka, Leah Rachel Bas Chaya, and for Leilu Nishmat Miriam Reisel Bas Moshe V'Yehudis, and for the Refuah Shlema Hillel Tzvi Yehuda. The week is sponsored by the senior Ganchers in honor of their children Eva and Josh, and by Avi and Stacy Rosenbaum for the refuah of the Chayal HaKadosh Binyamin Chaim Pesach Ben Moshe Chana, and anonymously for all the hostages to safely come home soon. Amen. All right, so the Chevra, you have pages, those that don't have the Sefer? By the way, how many people need Sfarim? Berech. We have to make another order of this. I think they're out of print. I'll check. I'll do my best. I'll do my best to see, like this. Of this in Hebrew.
No, they have the English.
The English. Okay, say it. Well, we'll try to do our best.
Can we follow
Today,
along in English one? Does that work?
It's not. It's not. I looked inside. It's not right. It's not exact. Yeah, you have it. It's not exact.
Okay.
Okay. I want to continue from what we did on Monday. Bless you. I'll share with you Bekitzer because you brought it up, Aryeh, but it has to do with this with our learning very, very much. Morning, Shlomo. People that fear only Hashem, that you only have yira from Hashem, like we were learning on Monday. That is the tikkun of the midah of Gevurah, because Gevurah, we learned that the midah of Gevurah, it's emanating from yira. Besides the fact that the gematrias are the same between the two words, and of course Aryeh, but Aryeh is very much connected to this inyan, of course, of being courageous like a lion. So people that only fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu are the people that you want to be A, decision makers, B, you want to be around them, and you want to be like them. You want to be like them. Some people discover the yira only by going through horrible, horrible catastrophes in life, horrible situations. But sometimes people, you see that it's embodied within them, this malchus dika midah of Gevurah, a regal Gevurah that comes from yira. So I had to cancel last night's shir, last second, the Hebrew shir, because I got a message from the Almana, from Rachel Goldberg, to see if I could come with a guitar and to come and just, they needed to breathe. So I told the person that sent the message to me that I was planning on going tomorrow, meaning today at a certain point, and I'll try to do my best to come in. They wanted at 9 o'clock towards the end of the night because they close up shop there at 10. And then, Bezrat Hashem, I'll be there today, I said. And then the middle guy that was doing the shlichus said, listen, can we be chutzpahdik and can you come now? Can you come now? So, those of you, I know many of you were there already. It's like a conveyor belt, like just going around and round.
Soldier killed when? Recently?
Yeah, this is Avi Goldberg's shiva, the Rav Avi Goldberg shiva. He was killed last week, and he has a lot of different connections and ashpaz and so many different worlds, and a big Jew, a big, beautiful, humble Jew. The place was packed, but they didn't waste a second. They brought me to Mama sit right in front of her and her children, and I think we sang straight. We didn't stop for probably close to an hour and a half. Nigun after nigun after nigun. I didn't say a word to her. Just looking at each other straight in the eye. There were nods. She only said one word to me. That was a name of a nigun that I sing, that she asked for. There was no need for any words. And the tent, and everyone was there. There was Gevurah, there was Yirat Hashem in the room. It's hard to describe this. It's very hard to describe this. Some of the chevra I've been getting, people are sending in footage from different angles. I'll try to put it together to share it later today. But this felt like people that are literally standing in the presence of Hashem. And it only enforces, me personally to come back to Torah that's relevant to the time that we're living in and go deep inside and embody these midot, to truly get these midot fixed, these attributes really, fixed to the best of our ability, al pi das Torah, and with no fear other than fear from Hashem. And that's what we were learning on Monday. That's where we began learning the inyan of the midah of Gevurah. Because you have to be a gibor of all giborim to be at your own tragic shiva and sing nigunim to Hashem for an hour and a half at the end of a day where you probably saw thousands of people, literally thousands of people. And I take it upon myself, and all the chevra too, that our inyan of making sure that there are no more shiva homes like that. We do whatever we can. And part of doing whatever we can is being in touch with the times that we're living in and learning it al pi pnimius, to try to understand pnimius-wise, what is the avodah right now? What is the avodat Hashem right now? Now, what's I don't want to say scary or weird, but what's not shocking anymore is that today's shir, what we're learning today, was said probably over 20-something years ago, because it may have well been that Rav Ginsburg was saying this to us this morning. It's one of these shirim where it's like, oh my God, how could it be that this wasn't the Torah that's guiding the Am? How ech ze yachol liot? So this concept of being takif, we were speaking about this also on Monday, takifus, in Ishbitzer Torah, in Ishbitz language, takifus means conviction. Where you have inner conviction, you're not confused. And this inner conviction guides you with such clarity on all levels to act in accordance to the way that a Jew acts without thinking about anyone else but the Ribono Shel Olam. Yad Yisrael takifa is what we're looking for, that the hand of Israel is takif. It's not confused. It's not confused. It's conviction. We know this is what we have to do. So, if you look in the pages in the Daf Tzadik Aleph in the Sefer, it's the first or second page that you have in the handouts. I don't know, but Tzadik Aleph, under the heading Yad Yisrael Takifa. היכולת לפעול בעוצמה תלויה בפשטוס, בקיומה של עוצמה צבאית ממשית בידי העם. So the ability to act in proper Gevurah simply is dependent on having powerful military, right, in the hands of the people. This matzav, this situation where you're able to be like this, to actually act with the proper Gevurah, is called in the Lashon of Chazal, Yad Yisrael Takifa. He brings it's a Gemara in Ksuvas, in the footnote. It's a phrase from the Gemara in Ksuvas. And Rav Ginsburg says, look, Bedoreinu, in our generation, as opposed to thousands of years of Jewish history, Bedoreinu, in our generation, Zachinu li'echol et zeh, we merited to have such an inyan that's called Tzva Haganah Yisrael. That's called the army. There's an inyan. We have this. We're used to it. We're born into a world that there's an Israeli army that's still a chiddush in the world. And we must be extremely thankful and filled with gratitude and grateful to Hashem that we actually have this inyan. Al Am Yisrael lachlit benechishut ubenechratzut limshol be'artzo. You didn't have to decide. They have to decide benechishut, with determination, and nechratzut, with like all its might, that we are governors in our land. Velistom kol pirtza bebitachon ha'am hayoshev ba, and to shut closed any breaking through, any opening of like of danger, of hazards that can come through to our people. It's very simple. It's not he's saying it so simply. It's not a complicated thing. Wherever there is a brokenness, there is a pirtza, there's a breach. Thank you. Yeah, better. Whenever there's a breach, zeo gamarnu. Like, it's not. There's no cheshbonos. There's a breach. Done. It's not any second of wondering. You're out. It's nothing. You're not with the midah of Gevurah. But it's probably because you don't really have yirat Hashem. That's where it comes back to. If you really have yirat Hashem, then a breach that could possibly cause a chilul Hashem has to be taken care of immediately. Gamarno. Baruch Hashem, yesh lanu et hakoach lekach. We have the power for this. Ve'en hadavar talui ela behachlatateinu. What is it all dependent on? If we decide. That's it. Kol matzah leumi metukan. Any fixed national platform haba mitoch ahavat Yisrael amitit, which emanates from real ahavat Yisrael amitit, that comes from real love, which we learned already, that Gevurah emanates from the midah of chesed, of love. So any platform, any national platform that's sprouting forth from really loving Yidden, chayav lichlol hachlata להגיב בכוח לכל סכנה או איום על כרם השם צבקos beis Yisrael לחסל כל אויב ויריב. It must be clear. These are not things that should have meetings and decision making. It must be clear that if that's where you're coming from, if you love Yidden, if you love Am Yisrael, then your whole platform must include a very clear notion of there is an enemy, and it must be eliminated. Yes?
It sounds a lot like when Mayor Kahana was asked, why do you hate the Muslims so much? Like, no, I love you.
Yeah.
Mamash the same.
Yeah. He said that many, many, many times.
Do they know each other?
Rav Ginsburg and I have a whole piece he has a whole piece on explaining why he never joined his Indian, because he said that he's a chassid, Rav Ginsburg. He's a chassid, and Rav Kahana wasn't a chassid. He quoted. I remember hearing him quoting from the Ger Rebbe here and there, but that wasn't his base medrash. He learned in Mir. His base medrash was not this, and because Kach's logo is this, right? So Rav Kahana felt that Rav Ginsburg felt that he's more like, Rav Ginsburg's look would have been more like, Mashu Kazeh, like, which includes within it in the MS is that in order for me to be able to be this, anything that threatens this has to be. But the overlying thing by Rav Ginsburg is this. I'm in such a year of a pachad. It's like Baruch Hashem, I never really ran away. It weakened a bit from the beginning, but this awe of being in the room with Rav Ginsburg. I think I shared with you guys that the first time that I spent time with him in his studio recording one of his nigunim, he sat in the control booth listening. It was torture. It was torture. I have the original recordings of the original tracks before they auto-tuned it. They sent it to me. I sound like a frog. I mamish sound like a frog. And then it was a complicated nigun. It's his nigun Shalom Aleichem. It's slow, it changes, the rhythms change. I'll send it out if you guys want. What happened is that after like 3 or 4 takes, and we were recording live, meaning the whole band was in one room, and I was in the singing booth, and he was in the control booth. So it's a whole operation, it's a whole geschäft. And then after trying twice to sing it, right, or 3 times, he went like this from the window. My heart, right? And he sat down and he pointed out to me the what's called the knetch. You know what a knetch is?
The connecting parts?
A knetch is like a krecht, but it's more, right, Steve? It's more. What's the actual? Danny, what's the actual word? A kneich. Sorry, a kneich. We say that's the Hungarian pronunciation. Yeah, it's like a squeeze, right? I wasn't singing the wrong melody, but there were moments that had to be really, and it's very deep, right? And my stomach is like, tumbling, and then finally, and I'm turning purple, okay? And then finally, I said to him, I had this moment, I was like, this is either going to be the greatest moment of my life or the worst. I said to him, Rebbe, this would actually come out good if my kishkas weren't exploding in your presence. And he looked at me and he goes, and he had a big smile, and a this, you know. And then from that meeting on, more or less afterwards, he always would come to the room and kisses me on the cheek. But it's still this, right? But it's Gevurah. That's the only way. That's the only way. So Avat Yisrael Amitit, like real love, if it's real love, there's a breach that's going to prevent that love from being something mamash chisul. You don't mess around. And he brings an example from the Rebbe. Rebbe Hishva, he goes over here. There's a sicha from Parshas Re'eh, 1978, summer of 1978. The Rebbe gave over a sicha where he spoke about chisul terror, which means completely demolishing and destroying terrorism. Or al yedei chisul mecholelav, or by wiping out those that cause terror. Or al yedei haglayatam lemakom acher, or by exiling them to a different place. He compared it to a surgical operation, to nituach chirugi. We should all be healthy. If you've been in hospitals, you've heard this concept, nituach operation, nituach chirugi. B'chirugia haya Rabbi Omer, ena hofech otech me'at hayom, הוא מחכה עד למחר או למחרתיים על מנת לחתוך עוד קצת. The doctor goes into a surgery and he needs something needs to be removed. It's like, today we're just going to open up a little bit. Maybe in 2 days we'll then open up, another piece and another place a bit more. חייבים לפתוח את המקום הנגוע. You must open up the place that's contaminated. There's an issue. ולהוציא את הגידול כולו, and to completely remove the tumor. מיד וללא היסוס. Immediately and without hisus. You know what that word means? Any hesitation. אסור לנו להטות אוזן לתיאוריות מעוותות. We cannot start listening and taking into account what he calls here theories that are me'uvat. You know what me'uvat means? Twisted. המתיימרות לדבר בשם המוסר, that speak in the name of morals. כגון זו המכונה כיום טוהר הנשק. Now he's saying this is called today, right? He said this 25 years ago. Tohar haneshek. How do you say that in English? Purity of arms. המסכנת מדי יום את חייהם של אלפי חיילים ואזרחים. This endangers the lives on a daily basis of thousands of soldiers and civilians. אלפי יהודים נרצחו על ידי מחבלים המוצאים לעצמם באופן שיטתי מחסה בתוך אוכלוסייה אזרחית. He says thousands of Jews have been killed by terrorists. That where do they find cover? Amongst civilian population. Or al yedei mechablim shepatchu beyeri, or by terrorists that opened up in fire. בעוד החייל היהודי עומד כאשר קנה רובהו, כמו גם המורל שלו מונמך, משום שאסור עליו לפתוח בירי לפני שהאויב יורה עליו ומסכן אותו ואת חבריו. This, Baruch Hashem, began to change, not fully yet, began to change. It's getting better. This drove me, it's not just me, who am I? The Chayalim drove them bananas. That the protocol here, for years, in the name of such messed up morality, was that you are not allowed, first of all, you can't even lift up your gun unless someone starts shooting at you. Or unless the rock, forget rock, no, rock's been never. But the whole thought process, which has nothing to do with Yirat Hashem. It has to do with the idolizing national Western cultures. Like idolizing it. To the nth degree. Mamash, like just, it's not acting like a Jew.
They don't hold themselves to that standard.
Ever.
I heard Moshe Feiglin say that Israel is the most Christian country in the world.
כמה צודקים דברי אותו אב המזהיר את בנו לפני הגיוס לצה"ל. מוטב לבקר אותך בבית הסוהר מאשר לבקר אותך בבית הקברות.
That's what I told Abby.
It's unbelievable story. כל הכבוד.
Exactly. I said,
כל הכבוד.
do whatever you gotta do to protect yourself. I'd rather see you in jail than have to
חס ושלום. God forbid.
Yeah, that's what my oldest son. He said it's over that whole rule.
It's over for now.
They see
It's
someone-
over for now. Let's talk about the day after.
But that's why
It's not
Still
over.
exists in Yiddish
It's
and
not
Rome.
exactly.
Yeah,
It may be over up north and down south to a certain extent. It's not over in our backyard
Not much so.
at all.
yeah, he's on the front, so then it's.
It's
over
different. It's different.
As
It
long-
must be over.
As long as our spokesman continues to insist to the world that we are the most moral army.
Yeah,
as
it's
if
not-
That is going to convince the whole world.
Right. It's
of
worked.
us.
It's been working really good.
Yeah.
It's really like gained this amazing. Don't you feel the love and the support? No, don't you feel like
Love Israel.
it's not because it's not our Indian. We're missing the nikuda. Whatever. I'm very hopeful and I have a lot of real optimism for the next generation because the chayalim that have given their lives and those that are willing to give their life every day, they're not going to tolerate an army like this anymore. En sikui. There's no way. There's no way. And it's these giburim that are going to be leading us in the next generation. Baruch Hashem.
It's empowered them.
Now the Rebbe then shows us, and he says, look at a certain tragic moment in Jewish history, which many of us were not alive for. Some of you were. I don't know how old you were to remember what was going on in the aftermath of the Yom Kippur War. Harebi hitzbia al nesibot protz milchemet Yom Kippurim. Talks about how the Yom Kippur War came about. Kasher erev hamilchama, right before the war broke out, כונסו ישיבות ממשלה דחופות בהן שמעו השרים את דעת ראשי מנגנון הביטחון וניסו לגבש הערכת מצב. So the ממשלה, the government had all these very important emergency meetings where they were hearing, the ministers were hearing the heads of security's opinions, assessing the situation of what's going on, and they tried to come to some kind of conclusion how to deal with the situation at hand. המודיעין הצבאי הוכיח ללא ספק שהתקפה מצרית בו תבוא. The intelligence, the army, the military intelligence proved without a doubt that there will be an Egyptian attack. There's not a shaila. מומחי הביטחון יעצו לבצע התקפה מקדימה. There were he says a lot of here tops in security that said you have to preempt. And this will what? תציל חיי יהודים רבים. It'll save the lives of many Jews. ותעצור את הפלישה הצבועה, and will also prevent the upcoming פלישה, the intrusion. למרות זאת, nonetheless, הפוליטיקאים, בגיבוי מומחים שלהם, politicians, being backed up by their mumchim, by their, the smart ones, the experts, שדבקו בעמדות ישנות שלא נבדקו שנית, לא קיבלו עצה זו. They didn't accept it. טענתם הייתה שצעד כזה, they said that if we preempt, ואפילו צעד מינורי יותר של גיוס כללי, and if we actually now do a major draft, יגרום לתדמית שלילית. It'll bring about a tadmit shlilit, a negative a tadmit. Image, yeah. יגרום לתדמית שלילית ותוקפנית, and an aggressive image. ויערער את יחסי ישראל עם ארצות הברית. It says 1973, and it'll cause tension between America and Israel. התוצאות הטרגיות של החלטה זו אישרו את הרלוונטיות של ההלכה לכל שטח ומצב. The tragic results of that decision, they basically showed how clearly relevant the halacha is regarding any shetach and every matzav where we find sakana for the Jewish people. רבים קיפחו את חייהם לחינם, so many. Yeah, I don't know the numbers. Does anyone know the numbers of Yom Kippur casualties? It was big. Was anyone living in Eretz Yisrael then?
3,000, I think.
You were living here then?
Just married.
And you were living here?
Yeah. Wow.
Your,
That's what I served.
your father served. Wow. It's a schut. The Makkah was, my father tells me about it. The Makkah was, mamish me Igra Rama le Bira Amikta. Igra Rama, 6-day war. Lo lokhim b'cheshbon, you're not doing calculations or anything. And then you're so high up, and you thought you stay high up there without the Ribbon Shleimah. Mazel. 6 years later, that's all it was. Bira Amikta. Going down to such a dark, difficult place. Rabim kipchu et chayem lechinam. We lost so many. V'amatzav haya karov la'ason. The situation was so close to a complete and total catastrophe. Lulei rachmei Hashem. If it wasn't for the compassion of God. Rosh HaMemshala does. Now this is funny when Rav Ginsburg's quoting Golda Meir. It doesn't happen every day. But the Prime Minister back then, Mrs. Golda Meir, hodata le'achar miken, she admitted afterwards, שתוצאות החלטה אומללה זו יטרידו אותה עד סוף ימיה. She said that the results of this horrible, miserable decision is going to haunt her for the rest of her life. That's what she said. Okay, so this was just pretty much straightforward, explaining to us the exact situation that we have found ourselves in here in Eretz Yisrael. It's not just only that we found ourselves in this last year. Any day that these barbaric Yamach Shemamim still exist in Iran shows us that we still haven't figured out how to lichbosh et ahavat Yisrael shelanu b'makom ha'amiti. It shows us that this inyan of Yira, still, the Gevurah, still needs a tikkun in its yesod. In its yesod as a people, still needs its inyan. Not the individuals. Every individual chayal, he's willing to be a melech. He is a melech. Every individual that's on the front line, he's a melech. We have nothing, ma yesh lomar. What could you ever say? Not him. They're following orders. That ranks goes up and up and up and higher. But imagine if the chain of command was coming from one place. Hashem li lo yira ma ya'aseh li adam. Different mitzias. Yes, Steve.
I just wanted to underscore what you just said. It's not just that we didn't understand who we're dealing with. Rav Ginsburg makes very clear here, and continues to this day, to this moment, by the decisions being taken because are being somech on the United States and not being somech on a Kodesh Baruch Hu.
Correct.
And it continues the number of Fruma Yidden, especially our American brothers, who say you couldn't manage without the American way.
Okay.
You've got to listen to them. And it's a lack of emunah.
Yeah.
It's a lack of emunah. And it's a...
They call it being pragmatic.
I understand that the lack of emunah is more profound than the not understanding how serious are our enemies.
Right. That's a very important nekuda what you're saying. And that's why we're not speaking here, this is not a sefer about logic. This is a sefer about the pnimius way to try to offer an actual platform that can take advantage of this amazing gift called Medinat Yisrael and sanctify it. The way, and Tzvaga. Yeah, I'm not so sure already, but I think many people are already done with that middle word.
It should be tzvah.
Right, but it would still be called Sahal if it was that. In English, it'd change. It would be IOF, yeah.
Still, why are we still?
My
Cans,
son's
I
name
know.
online is Sevet Attack. Sevet Attack.
Again, the ones that are, unfortunately, the ones that are currently in battle, they're not yet the dugma of how the top has changed the whole approach, right? It's because it's right now, it's hot, right? It's hot. But we're looking at a bigger picture that has to be a pnimius dika revolution, an inside revolution of how we're even approaching this whole mitzias now. And this is what we're gonna do the next 10 minutes maybe, because it's if we don't narrow this down, this will open up again the whole thing. One of the concepts that have become also, we spoke about this a year ago, one of the concepts that became treif to speak about, I'm not sure when, we said it this morning twice, once in Psuki de Zimra and then in Shir Shel Yom, is nekama, is revenge. Chevra.
Since you taught us about the Kel Nekamot, early up last...
It was a year ago.
Changed my whole reading of that.
It was a year ago. Chevra, you understand that we haven't even begun to deal with Nekama? The Nekama hasn't, what's going on, what's been going on now, has nothing, we haven't even touched upon this this topic. With that hasn't begun yet. So far, it's been a sense of like what you want to call maybe justice or cleaning up shop. Nekama has not even been a thing that we've begun to talk about. Now, when and where and how Nekama, we gave, I don't know how many shiurim we did on that. Maybe 15 or 16 shiurim we did on that, probably. No? Masha Kazeh? It was the 3 months of learning. Perek Yud Bet and Ora Rayon. We're just doing this in like one very like measurable way here. How Rav Ginsburg explains this inyan, but keep in mind, it can only come from Yirat Hashem and trying to wipe away a Chilul Hashem in order to make a Kiddush Hashem. The moment that this conversation that goes out of there, the other side got you. And that's the hardest thing in the world.
As you taught us last year, Pinchas is the ultimate example who received the most ridiculous
Bris Shalom.
For Nekama. But that
Pinchas gets a Bris Shalom because he was Nakomet Nikmatim Ed Bnei Yisrael.
because Tafat Esher Kinei
Ta-
Lokav.
Le'elokav. You see, when we look at footage, there's these people that post every single day. So that people don't forget. Every day. There's this woman, I don't know who she is, Noah Magid. Every single day, she says, it's still October 7th, we will never forget. And we haven't even begun to deal with the Chilul Hashem that has taken place. It hasn't. Zod lo itchanu b'zeh. Some say the greatest nekama is having more children. It's also it's part of it. But people would like to say that's part of it. The nekama is an inyan. We have to again revisit. But we're revisiting this very gently right now. Musag nosaf al chayav litbarer lanu hu hanekama. Another one of these concepts that have been unfortunately taken into captivity by the olam hanaor, by the enlightened world, right? Is nekama, is revenge. Haruach hashaletet kayom be'emtzei hatikshoret. This is 25 years ago. The spirit that controls the media waves today, טוענת שתופעת הנקמה הינה שארית בלתי רצויה מימי קדם ושייכת לעבר הברברי של האנושות. They say, you can't help but laugh, because if you're not, you'll just cry a river. They say that this concept called nekama, that's something that's shaykh to human barbaric mentality. It has nothing to do with our world today. אך בתורה אנו לומדים שנקמה בהקשר הנכון היא דבר חיובי. But in the Torah we see nekama in its right context, right, is a positive thing. גדולה נקמה במילתה. במקום שצריכה נקמה דבר גדול הוא, Rashi says. And Rashi, you hold by Rashi. Chaver, do you hold by Rashi or he's also treif? You still? Huh? We hold by Rashi or not so much? So either hold by Rashi or you don't hold by Rashi. I think we hold by Rashi. Rashi tells us, in a place where nekama is needed, and that's the key word here, davar gadol hi. This is a big thing. I'm going to remind you guys, our brothers and sisters were raped, men and women, and beheaded. On one of the trips to Be'eri. On one of the trips to Be'eri, we were there so many times, but one of the trips, they finally, after this whole article came out in the New York Times, Shem Yirachem, that admitted that there was a certain family with the last name Sharabi that parents were tied and their 15 and 13-year-old daughters were raped in front of them. And then the mother was raped in front of the husband. And then they killed the mother and the two kids and then took the husband into captivity. And there's still Yishmaelim in Eretz Yisrael. In the time of the Tanakh, if this story took place, what do you think the next chapter would be? Kshenishpach dam Yehudi. Third line from the bottom. Kshenishpach dam Yehudi. Shem Hashem HaMitgaleh be'amo mitchalel. The reason I told you this story is because we passed by that house so many times where this all took place, but we didn't know what was going on there because the chavrim of the kibbutz were told, do not speak about this.
We said it on the Tisha B'Av. We talked about it in the morning.
We said about it in Tisha B'Av. And then we were in this, and then we went to this house. Kshenishpach dam Yehudi, when Jewish blood is spilled, Shem Hashem HaMitgaleh be'amo mitchalel. Understand something, chavrim. When Jewish blood is spilled, what does that mean? Chilul Hashem. Chilul Hashem. That's what it means. Chas v'shalom. Al ken chovatenu lekadesh et Hashem al yedei nekama b'shofchei hadam. Therefore, it's our obligation to sanctify the name of God by revenge on those that spilled the blood. Now, the chain of those that spilled the blood is so massive, it's almost unfathomable. It's almost unfathomable. ולא רק לחכות עד שהשם בעצמו יקדש את שמו בקנאתו. We don't sit back and wait. No. It says, Kel nekamos Hashem. Nekama, that's Hashem will do it, right? Like I was so empowered by this chayal who got injured. Baruch Hashem, he's okay, and he's also one of the greatest singers in Israel, Idan Amedi. I said this so many times that when he's in Chela Handasa. You say Chela Handasa?
Engineering Corps.
Engineering Corps.
And they were about to blow up a carousel, and they always have, a little Haggadasha, like a dedication, in memory of so-and-so, and they dedicate it to one of their friends that fall. And then he said, and of course, half the media edited out 2 seconds of what he said, because he says, Hashem ve'anachnu nikom damo. They took out ve'anachnu. But the recording is Hashem, I have it. Hashem ve'anachnu nikom damo. So let's finish with this. The next page. B'siyum shirat ha'preda shel Moshe Rabbeinu me'am Yisrael ne'emar, and we just read this. Harninu goyim amo ki dam avadav yikom, v'nakam yashiv letzara v'chiper admato amo. The last, do you have it? No? Tzaddik Gimel? It didn't come around? Okay. I'm sorry if you don't have it. I thought I made enough, but just listen. Harninu goyim amo ki, by the way, when do we say this? Huh? Avarachamim on Shabbos, right? Harninu goyim amo ki dam avadav yikom v'nakam yashiv letzara v'chiper admato amo. Al pasuk zeh mefaresh Ibn Ezra. How does Ibn Ezra explain this? כי ישראל יעשו נקמה בגויים, והם יחפרו על ארץ ישראל בעבור הדם ששופך בה. Am Yisrael will revenge those that spilled our blood, and there'll be a kapara over Eretz Yisrael, over the blood that was spilled in it. כשנחזור להבין את מעלת הנקמה וחיוניותה, when we go back to understanding the exaltedness of the concept called revenge, וחיוניותה, chiyuni, and its essentiality to the whole picture of what we're doing here, נוכל לשאוף ממנה תועלת רבה, we could draw from it a lot. הן בכוח ההרתעה שבה, also, it'll also bring us back true koach harta'a. You hear that word a lot in the media. Huh? Deterrence. Hen by echpatiyut, but also not just that, not just the message that it sends out there to the world. And this, we're going back to chesed now. Hen by echpatiyut shehi me'oredet klapei chayenu achinu haYehudim. But then brothers will know there's no way in the world that not only are we not in this together, but that you love me and I love you, we'll never put up for anything less than what we're talking about over here. It'll me'orer true concern and love for each other. That I know that if we go to battle, we're going to battle. Like, not chetzi battle. Not chetzi battle. And it'll also, behen beruach ha-lechima, שוודאי תתרומם מנפילתה. And also the spirit of war which will definitely arise and come back up again after having fallen. גם כעת, also now, בכל פעם שממשלה מתירה לצבא לנקום רצח חיי יהודים, מתרוממת רוח הציבור. So Rav Ginsburg said, every time the government allows the army to avenge the murder of Jewish lives, now that doesn't mean that the government allows people to go into villages and start randomly shooting people. But what it means is that when the army allows chayalim to kill terrorists, I know it sounds like you understand, it's so absurd that I even have to say these words, but like when the government actually allows to clean up shop, so the ruach of the tzibur, then the ruach of the people feels like, oh yeah, I'm not a little duck anymore.
Not friar.
I'm not bediuk. אני לא friar. הצבא מתמלא מתנדבים, and the army then gets filled with volunteers. והאהדה לממשלה עולה. And then that government that allows that to happen suddenly receives this amazing love and support. הנקמה גורמת לתקומה. Now this freaked me out because Bibi's been calling this war now מלחמת התקומה, right? And Rav Ginsburg wrote this 25 years. He says, nekama causes tkuma, klalit shel ha'am. Tkuma. How do you say tkuma? How do they say it in the media? How do they say it? Kam. The shoresh is kam.
Okay, but it's emotional.
Yeah.
Resurrect.
Yeah. Uplifting. He chozeret liskof et komato. It goes back to lift up its koma. Shehushpela. Venishtochecha b'ikvot hapgiot bo. Like after being hurt so many times, time after time, and wondering what is going on here, you start to become a giben, a hunchback. And then when you see it doesn't have to be like this, you start being a ben melech again. And that feels right, and that feels natural, and that feels holy. Omnam. But he's saying, however, yesh lashuv u'ladgish, we have to continue, we have to emphasize again. שלפני הכרזת ריבונות על כל שטחי ארץ ישראל, כולל כל יהודה, שומרון וחבל עזה, אין לנו הצדקה חזקה דייה לעקירת כל מאורות הטרור בארץ. It's great that you want to come out with proclamations and say, this is what we're doing. We are conquering everything, and it's all ours. Rav Ginsburg says what needs to come first. Midat hachesed chayevet lehagdim. The love must come first. The midah of chesed must come first. And this midah of chesed, as we learned for about a month and a half before the Chagim, when the midah of chesed is in its right place, and that's where I'm operating from, then it comes first, and then it'll begin to illuminate ule'a'ir betoch ameinu et shayachuto lechol chelkei haaretz. You know what the love is going to make us realize? Rav Ginsburg is saying something so powerful here. When the love is on, what does it cause me to feel? That every blade of grass and every pebble and every rock and every stone is part of my metzius, is part of me. So the love, see, the Gevurah makes me feel like I need to conquer, and it's true. And it needs to be there. But Rav Ginsburg, he's a chassid. So what is he saying? That if it's not first coming from a place of love, and the love will cause you to have this hispashtus of this connection and a magnetism to all of the land, only then can you then go to the next shlav of Gevurah.
It's talking about Ahavat Yisrael or Ahavat Haaretz?
Over here it says Aretz. But of course, Ahavas Yisrael, you already said that before, is part of it. רק לאחר מכן אפשר יהיה להפעיל את עוצמת הגבורה במילואה כלפי אויבינו. Only afterwards can Gevurah be on, mamash on, against our enemies. But the midah of Ava, and that's why right now we see that there's such an inner pneumistic war over this inyan of chesed, of where the chesed is at. It's very, very, we need a lot of, mamash, we need such siyat dishmaya and compassion from above, that there should be such a izgalus of, that we are all brothers and sisters, regardless of what anyone says. Lo yazo, it doesn't matter till we're blue in the face, especially those that we vehemently disagree with and they make our blood boil. I have to first know that they're my brother and my sister, and that they're mishpacha. And I have to believe that the more that I love them, the more that my connection, don't worry that I won't be influenced by their opinions. But what will happen is that my connection, if we're guf echad, like the Arizal calls Am Yisrael, soid guf echad, if we're the secret of one body, that body also is the tzura of the land, then I will also gain my connection to the rest of the land. And then, when it's time for Gevurah, forget it. Gamarno, the game is over. I think it's even, it seems to me like what he's saying this over here is that the tikkun of the midah of chesed, we know already. He said it has to come first before Gevurah. But what do you guys think? Doesn't it seem that chesed is much harder than Gevurah? Much harder.
You have all of the people that you're saying, regardless of what they're saying, and then the power of the Gevurah is greater than what Meir Kahane wanted to do even.
But I'm saying that it's hard, this midah of, we were saying like, why are we such idiots? Why aren't we activating the Gevurah? So he's saying to us over here, well, that's because for it to really be what it needs to be, the chesed has to be in that place. And that's why today, to make it on the road without the Baal Shem Tov's world, I don't know how you could make it. I just don't know how you could make it. Because the whole inyan of the Besh, of the Baal Shem Tov HaKodesh, was all this inyan of Avas Yisrael bipnimiusa, inside. That it's a real, real thing. And not a nice concept, but it's a real, real thing. It's a real thing. Ketzad, last paragraph. Ketzad nochal lakachat et achrayut. How can we take the responsibility? Hen hafizit v'hen hamusarit. The physical and moral responsibility. L'talich hamilchamti hazeh, to this war mahalach of life. כל עוד אנחנו מתייחסים לחלוקים מהותיים של מולדתנו כאל שטחים כבושים. While we still react and have a relationship with certain areas in the country as occupied lands. כל עוד רוח כזו מפעמת בנו, as long as that spirit is a little bit in us, אנו נותנים הצדקה עקיפה לערבים במלחמתם בנו. We are not directly, we're indirectly giving a justification for the Arabs' war against us, which is why I told you guys a year ago that in this shul no one will ever say the word Palestine. Because saying that word is an indirect justification for a claim that does not exist. And unfortunately, some of the voices that have become a shtickle loud in the world in terms of hasbara, Yisraelit, are still very much stricken in this. One of the women that she feels like she's doing Avodas HaKodesh, and I'm sure she's coming from a good place, but it's very problematic because she had to give she was wearing one of those necklaces that are in the shape of Eretz Yisrael, and she got such a backlash from who? From the Knesset members, the Ishmaeli Knesset members, saying, are you wearing a you were like, she was, big in like peace, I shouldn't even say that word. You know what I mean? All those things. And then she had to she went online to show, no, look, my necklace shows that those shtachim kvushim are not part of my necklace. And she's speaking in the name of Am Yisrael after October 7th. We have to love her that much more. There's no other way. I know you want to punch me in the face when I say that. But if we're going to be real with what we're learning, if we want to be real with what we're learning, this midah of chesed has to come before Gevurah. Because the Gevurah just being like, it won't work. Ze lo yavod, ze lo yelech. So I give us all a bracha to lafnim, to take deep inside right now, the notion of, first of all, Hashem li lo yira ma'aseh li adam, but to remember that can only really, really happen when my Ahavas Yisrael is reaching places and that I never saw before, and it is, Chavre, and they are, they definitely are, and they're just going to go more and more and more invited to that place. B'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. Shukran, everybody. Shukran.
All good?
Arbe.
Thank you.
Good talk.